Hey y'all. So I know, I'm sorry, it's been a while. There's a lot to talk about and I don't know how long this video is going to be, but that's not what we're worried about here. We're just gonna talk, let the things flow, okay? I'm gonna give you guys an update on where I've been, what's been going on, how I am now, and what's to come moving forward. I am actually very, very nervous about this video. I recorded this video 6 months ago and I did not put it out. I was like, I just can't do it right now. My mind, my mental was not in the right space and I was not ready to share that, and I'm so glad that I didn't. It felt good to talk about it and release it, but it kind of felt like a lot. It felt like too much, and y'all know I'm already kind of reserved already. So to go into a video and just spill everything was a lot, okay? So I was like, okay, dial it back a little bit, dial it back and make this a little bit more palatable because people aren't already used to you giving all this information about yourself. So if I just start spilling the beans, and it's nothing crazy, nothing like that, but it just felt like too much. Like, okay, sometimes you just share too much, y'all know. Sometimes we just share too much information to people that we don't even know, and it's not for everybody. You know, certain details are not for everyone to know. So that's kind of how I felt about the first time I recorded this video. So I dialed it back, which like I said, that was 6 months ago. And now here I am in February. Today is February the 13th. Yeah, that was like 6 months ago. I recorded this back in September and now I'm ready to talk about it. Things have changed and shifted in my household, so that is what we're gonna be talking about. But I just wanna check on you guys, see how y'all are doing. Mental health check down in the comments. Let me know how you guys are doing, how your year is going so far. Any goals, any aspirations you have for this year, anything that you are working towards, anything that you just want to accomplish this year, and just how you're doing in general. Comment down below because I would love to know. I want to get more personal with you guys, and that's been something that has been a struggle for me. I'm very guarded and I just want to kind of break that down a little bit and really just show you guys me. So I know if you're watching this video, you've probably been watching me for a very long time now, but I just want to reintroduce myself to those who may not know me. And even if you do know, just to give you guys a little bit of a reminder and just to kind of humanize me a little bit. I feel like sometimes I'm like this robot who just tries clothes on for a living and nobody really knows the like personality, the being behind this person trying on these clothes. And that has been my biggest struggle since I started influencing. I wanted to give people more of me, but there was this block. There was this mental block, physical block, I don't even know. So just to give you guys a little bit of information on myself, my name is Brianna Thompson. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County, stand up, okay? And I was born December 7th, 1993. I'm also married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together for 14 years now, 15 years, child. I've lost count, but I actually do know. So if you're watching this, I'm sorry, babe. I do remember, but right now it's just a lot going on in my mind. But we've been married for a minute. We've been together for more than half of my life, which is crazy to think about. So yes, I am married. I've gotten a lot of questions about, is she still married? Like, did she get a divorce? Like, what's going on? First of all, my husband is not a secret. Everyone knows that I have a husband. I mention him all the time. It's just not anyone's business for me to be putting out certain things, you know? Like, I don't even know how to explain it. He's not a social media guy, so he just stays in the background and lets me do what I do. And every so often you guys will see him, hear him, whatever the case may be. Y'all, I got some iced coffee. I just had it with my breakfast. I've been learning to not drink my coffee before I eat because I had an issue like a couple months ago. My lips started turning like, they looked like they were bruised. And I was like, I feel like this is an iron issue. And I went to get my iron tested and my iron was normal, but my ferritin was low. And one of the things that can cause low iron or like the absorption of iron to be low is to drink things with tannins in it, AKA coffee. And I was eating steak for breakfast every day, but I was drinking coffee right along with it. So this was just absorbing up all the iron that I was eating and I wasn't keeping any of it. Therefore, it was draining my ferritin. Yeah, anyways. We're gonna start at the beginning, somewhat at the beginning of my life. I was born, like I said, in Jacksonville, Florida, to my parents. Very, very shortly after I was born, my parents got a divorce. I wasn't even old enough to really know what was even happening. I was a baby, okay? So I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that when I got older, I was splitting my time between my dad and my mom. Primarily, I lived with my dad, and then I would visit my mom during the summers. So that was my dynamic growing up. And then my dad remarried. She had 2 kids, so then that made them my stepsisters, and I had another blood sister as well that my father and my mother had right along with me. So it was the 4 of us, 2 stepsisters, me and my sister, my dad, and then my stepmom. And that was pretty much my life for a big chunk of my childhood up until I became 17, 18. So basically, I don't really remember a whole lot, to be honest, of my childhood. I just know that there were times where we struggled, but I wasn't really aware of what was happening at the time. And then all of a sudden, it was like everything was good. My dad had a really good job. My stepmom had a really good job. They were providing for us. Essentially, from the outside looking in, one could say that we were spoiled. To be honest, I kind of feel like we were as well. We had everything. We always had clothes. We always had shoes. We always had the newest gadgets, the newest toys, the newest whatever. Okay, we always had what we needed. And then it became a point as we got older, things started to shift. And I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with the dynamic of being in a home with a step parent that doesn't necessarily, I really was trying to hold back on this video and not sound a certain way, or you know what, forget it, okay? Having a step parent that just does not like you. And you don't know why they don't like you. You don't really understand the issue. You're just a child or a preteen just existing in the world and struggling with your own identities and insecurities and all the things that you have going on at that age. And you have this adult that just does not like you for no apparent reason. So that's pretty much how it was for me. So very early on, I've always felt like the outcast in the household. I would just stay to myself. I would just be in my room, minding my business, while everybody else is out in the living room gossiping about this person, that person. It just wasn't my vibe. I did not want to be a part of it. And I was like, that's just not what I want. I don't want that. So I would just be isolated, essentially. I've been isolated for a very long time. Like that's my defense. And that's what I've realized as I got older. My defense is to isolate. So when I just disappear on social media or I don't be posting, something is going on. I just need y'all to know. It's not always like life-ending, life-threatening or anything crazy like that. But sometimes emotions and internal battles are the hardest battles to fight. So when I do go through those moments, I just isolate myself from everyone and I don't really post unless I absolutely have to, which I feel like has been happening recently. And yeah, anyways, my earliest defense was to just isolate myself. So that's been my defense as I've, gotten older and older. So that was the dynamic. I was like the little black sheep. I was the one that just because I was shy or just because I wasn't talking to people, it was, oh, you think you're better, or oh, you think you're too good. And it was just like, no, I'm literally just not interested in any of what y'all talking about. And I don't really want to be a part of that. I'm shy. I'm really genuinely shy. I still kind of am to a certain extent, but I was just genuinely shy. And I just did not have an interest in being in that environment. I really just didn't. And that's all it was. It had nothing to do with me thinking I was better than anyone. And I know that somebody can relate to that because I feel like that's the story of a lot of people who are super shy, reserved. You are just genuinely shy. Like, I don't know how to communicate with you right now. I don't know what to say because I'm shy. Literally, I'm shy. But then the other person may perceive it as, you think you're too good, or you may think you're better, and I just will never understand that. But anyways, so basically the dynamic of the household was we were all like a year apart from each other. So if one person was in the 12th grade, then the next was the 11th, then the next was 10th, and then I was at the bottom because I'm the youngest. I was in the 9th grade. So as the years progressed, everybody just kind of branched off and that just left me. So once it was time for me to graduate and everything, that was when the relationship between my father and my stepmother kind of diminished. Like it literally crumbled and I didn't know what was happening, but I was just like, okay, it is what it is. And at that point, my relationship with my stepmother wasn't really that great either. I just kind of felt very uncomfortable around her because I just felt like she didn't like me. So I didn't really talk to her that much. I kind of tiptoed around her, to be honest. And there was a lot with that, but whatever. So they ended up deciding to split up. And when that happened, it just left me and my father in the household. So now we are going from a household that had 2 incomes to 1. And that was like an immediate shift. Everything just changed from that moment. I realized my dad is struggling. And I was like, I don't know if he wants to like let it be known, but I could tell that he is. Something is off. Like things are disappearing in the house. And I didn't really want to go too deep into this, but just to give you guys the gravity of the situation, things were disappearing in the house. TVs, electronics. And I'm just like, what's going on? It got to the point where I had to get a job because one, I wanted to get a job, but two, I felt like I had to. So at the time, my boyfriend, who was now my husband, worked at an ice cream shop. He got me a job. So I ended up getting a job with him at the ice cream shop, but we didn't work on the same shift or anything, but I ended up getting the job and I was working there. Everything was great. And then once I started to get the money was gone. I wouldn't be able to spend it. I wouldn't be able to save it. I wouldn't be able to use it on anything because I was giving it to my dad. So for the longest, that's essentially what was happening. I was making this money and then I was giving it to him. And at first it did bother me, but I realized that he needed help. So it was only right. So then time passed and eventually I had to quit that job because it just wasn't working for me anymore. I didn't have a car, I didn't drive, I didn't have my license, none of that. So it was an inconvenience for my dad and just anyone to get me to work. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. And at that point, I had decided that I was gonna go to the military because obviously I wasn't saving for college. I didn't have a college fund. I didn't have anything that was going to allow me to go to school. And I didn't want to end up in so much debt. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna join the military. My dad retired from the military. My mom was in the military, but she got out after a certain amount of time. So it was just kind of a no-brainer. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to the military. I was terrified because I'm super shy. I'm always like to myself and reserved. So someone like that joining the military is like a huge step. So that's what I decided. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna join the military and I'm gonna spend the rest of this time that I have in my senior year just living my little senior year life, okay? And then it came to a point where the lights were cutting off, the water was shutting off, things were just happening, and my dad just didn't want me to be around for that. So it came down to one of the most, I would say, embarrassing things that I've ever had to do, and that was to ask one of my closest friends, could I live with her? So everyone is just excited about the senior year. They're picking their colleges, they're saving up for cap and gowns and rings and yearbooks and trips and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting over here like, I gotta find somewhere to live. And I'm still in high school. I was like, this is insane. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to ask. I just was embarrassed because it felt like all those years of people seeing me, these friends that I had and whatnot, seeing me, looks like from the outside in, I have all these things. I'm just this girl who has all these clothes, all these shoes, just clearly I have it made. But for it to all come crashing down like that, and I just so happened to be caught in the crossfires of it, I know now that it was all a part of God's plan, but at the time it was so hard to literally go ask one of my friends, not to mention a friend who had younger siblings. So this is a household that has smaller children and a daughter who's in the same grade as me about to graduate. That's such an inconvenience. But to this day, I thank her. I feel like I can't thank her enough, to be honest, but it's one of my closest friends. She's like my sister at this point. And I asked her, I literally was like shaking, asking her. And she was like, oh yeah, girl, yeah, that's fine. And it was just so easy. And it was just, thank God, she's literally an angel. And that was so hard for me because obviously I'm 18, or I'm about to be 18. It's my senior year. Everyone is doing all these things. And here I am like, I'm about to be homeless. So Kiara, if you're watching this, I love you, girl. Forever and always, my sis, all right? That happened. So I moved out and I moved in with her. And that was interesting, but I am so gracious to her family for allowing me to move in with them. That was such a hard time for me. And I thank God that she was in my life because I don't know if she wasn't where I would have ended up, to be honest. So that happened. And basically my senior year was just a struggle. Getting the money to do just the normal things that one would do in their senior year was a struggle. And there were some times where other family had stepped in for me, and I thank God for him as well. My uncle, he stepped in for me a lot, and he paid for my senior trip. He paid for my ring, my yearbook. He stepped in and did a lot for me at the time, and I was just so grateful because it was like all these angels were placed in my life, unexpected angels at that, because I was like, what am I gonna do? And everything was taken care of, and I know now today that that was God. So yeah, that was what my senior year was like, and that was the beginning of the decline, if you will, when it came to me and my dad. So I went off, like let's fast forward. So I went off to the military, and when I left, my dad was still kind of in the same predicament that he was in. He did have a job, he was working, And at that point, he had rented the house out to some tenants. So things were going pretty okay. I was, in basic training, going through the motions. And eventually I ended up in the functional real world Air Force and not like training and being in basic training anymore. So I was in the real world, I was getting paid. From that moment as well, I was financially helping my dad. So I first started making money when I worked at this ice cream shop and I was giving it to my dad. I go off and join the military. I start to make money from my checks, which if you know, when you first get in the military, it really ain't nothing. I was giving money to my dad. I was supporting him in some way, giving him money here, money there, money here, money there, and it adds up. Y'all know, okay? So it don't matter how much money it is, it adds up. So that was pretty much my life. I was living in the dorms at the time, so it wasn't like I had a whole lot of things to purchase, but that didn't mean that I needed to give somebody else my money, because I used to justify like, oh, well, I don't need to get groceries, I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that because I'm living in the dorm, I don't have to pay bills, except for my phone bill, but it was not okay, period. I look back on that and I'm just like, it still wasn't okay. Just because you don't need the money, aka you don't need to spend it on anything, doesn't mean that it is automatically allotted to someone else that needs it. Like, you know what I mean? So that's when the frustration started to kick in and I was like, what is going on? What is happening? Mind you, this was, at this point, 2014. And it was actually before that, because obviously I graduated in 2012. So 2012 is technically when I first started to financially support my dad in some way. So 2012, let's just say 2012, up until 2024. Just to skim past a lot of the meat and potatoes, you guys get the point. I grew up in a broken home, essentially. Then I ended up in a situation where my dad was struggling and it directly affected me. I had to move in with my friend. Pretty much since I've been making money, I have been financially supporting my dad in some way. So it's been a lot, okay? It's been a lot, and it's been very, very difficult to distinguish between, oh, I'm just helping my father or I'm being taken advantage of. I still struggle with that. And as much as I would like to think that my father was not taking advantage of me, it still doesn't make it easier, because it's almost like once you keep doing something for someone, they're only gonna keep doing what you allow them to do. So yes, it is my fault, but also it's like, what's going on here? Are you doing this because you know, like you just know, you assume that I'm going to make sure you're good, which is not a good thing, period. That's not even a good way to think about it. But, or are you just genuinely like on hard times for all these years? Like I genuinely was so stuck between, am I being taken advantage of? Or is this just like genuinely, he's just genuinely struggling and has been for the last 10 years. So anyway, 2023, which is so crazy. 2023, we are in Atlanta at this point. My husband got out of the military. We moved to Atlanta. We initially lived in Noonan. I'm sure you guys have heard of it if you lived in Georgia or Atlanta. We lived in Noonan, which is like southern Georgia. So we lived out in Noonan for a year. We rented a house out there. And the goal after that was to buy, because we were tired of renting. Like the amount of money you spend in rent is crazy. Like it's crazy. It's equal or even less than sometimes to pay a mortgage. So we were like, no, we can't keep doing this. The amount of money we've spent on rent is crazy. And of course we're married. So eventually we want to start a family. We don't want to be house hopping, apartment hopping. No. So we started the home buying process and it was fairly smooth. There were some bumps in the road, but ultimately it all worked out for the greater good. And as you can see, I'm in the home right now and I'm so thankful, so blessed. So we started the home buying process back in 2023. And at that point, I started to realize like my life was about to change, because once you become a homeowner, things are not the same, okay? You have a lot more responsibilities. There's a lot more money that goes into it. And it's not a guaranteed, this is how much you pay every single month and you know how much you're gonna be paying. It's like closing costs, furnishing the house, like all these things that come with purchasing a home, a lot of money, all right, a lot of money. And I started to realize like, hey, girl, you can't be dishing out this money to other households, compromising your situation and putting yourself in a situation where you're not able to provide for your own family. It's just me and my husband, but that's my family, okay? At the end of the day, that's my family, and we're going to build a family. So I want to make sure that we are good. So I started to realize I have to set a boundary. I have to put my foot down and I have to end it. So once I realized that I had to put my foot down and set a boundary, I did just that. I called my dad and I was talking to him and I was like, look, if this is going to continue, I personally cannot do it. I am drained. My cup is empty. I have nothing. At this point, it was affecting me and my husband, because ultimately my husband and I are one. Okay, when we got married, that's what happened. We became one. So anything that affects me affects him. He started to see how it was affecting me. Like every time I turned around, I was giving my dad money. I was taking out loans in my name. He was just doing all these things. And it was just like, are you genuinely struggling, or you just, like, it was insane. Like the scope, when I think of all the things that I've done, I don't sit and nitpick about everything that I've done. I've never thrown anything back in his face, because ultimately I know that God is going to bless me regardless. I don't expect anything back in return. I've never expected anything back in return, because ultimately at the end of the day, I'm in this house because of God. He has blessed me with everything that I have because of everything that I've done. I've been so obedient over the years, and that's something that I want to talk about as well eventually. But I grew up in the church. But growing up in the church that I grew up in was religion. It was not relationship. And it wasn't until like 4 or 5 months ago maybe that I started to actually pursue a relationship with God. And I was given all of these revelations, all these things that I've been through, all these things that I would question, all these things that happened in my life. I was like, God is so good. He really is so good. And I get mad when I think about the fact that God wasn't even a thought in my mind at certain parts in my life. And it's just frustrating, but I'm thankful now that I'm building my relationship with God, because He has brought me here. And the reason why I'm able to sit here and talk about this and I'm not like breaking down is because I've had so many conversations with God, and I've gotten so much clarity, and I have so much peace with a lot of things. But basically I was like, you know what? I'm gonna set a boundary. I draw the line here. And I did. I told him we can't have a relationship if you're gonna keep doing this. And he agreed. He was like, okay, I won't ask you for anything anymore ever again. And it did sound like, okay. Cause I mean, I just didn't believe it. I'm not gonna lie. I just didn't believe it. But I was like, all right, this is a start. I'm letting you know how I feel. And I'm letting you know that we cannot have a relationship if this continues. And I know how much my dad values our relationship. And I value our relationship too, but it's such a draining relationship, and it has been for so many years that sometimes I was like, is it better to just not have a relationship? Because when I was growing up, one thing I forgot to mention about growing up in the household with the dynamic of the stepmom, stepsisters, and how I was like the black sheep. It's something that is, unfortunate, but as I've gotten older, he has mentioned to me as well as I've realized that he was emotionally just checked out. He didn't really cater to me and my sister that much. More so me, I would say. I was just kind of like left on the back burner, essentially. And emotionally, I was just neglected. He was physically there, and he was one of those parents that would say like, oh, well, I put clothes on your back, I put food on the table, so that should be good enough. And y'all know how that is, especially in black households. The emotional part is the part that scars you the most. As an adult, you are now this person that your parents unintentionally created because of their neglect in whatever area that was. So now I'm acting out in the way that I am because of how you raised me, And it was just so difficult to come to that realization at this age. Okay, it was difficult, but then I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly why I'm acting the way that I am. Like, it was a revelation. It was unfortunate. It was sad. It was freeing, all the things. But basically, when I drew the line, I kid you not, when I set that boundary and said, we cannot have a relationship if you keep doing this, I'm not even joking, y'all. A couple weeks, it wasn't even a month later after having that conversation, my dad calls me and he tells me he needs a place to stay. Mind you, me and my husband are in the process of purchasing this home. So before I even moved into this home, before we even signed closing papers, before we even had things like set up, I already had in my mind that my father was going to be moving in when we moved in. Before we even got to the point of the house even being finished, anything, I knew that my father was going to live with us. Imagine everything that I've done, everything that I've been through, all the hardship, all the heartache, all the why? I finally set a boundary. After like 8+ years. And then the next thing is you asking me to move in with me and my husband in our first home. Y'all, when I say, and y'all know, God works in mysterious ways, okay? I finally set that boundary, and then that happened. And I knew immediately when it happened. I was talking to my husband. He is a God-fearing man, and he grew up with relationship, not religion. I grew up with religion and not relationship, and he grew up with relationship, not religion. And as soon as that happened, I knew it was nobody but God. And the only thing that I could do in that moment was be obedient. I was like, you know what? This is not gonna be easy for me. I don't wanna do this, okay? And I was even saying, before he even asked me, I was even saying like, can you imagine if my dad asked to move in with us? Could you imagine that? I don't think I could do that. I couldn't do that. That would just ruin our relationship. It's like I spoke it up. It's crazy. So I was like, whew, it's just a new level that I was not ready for, okay? After everything that I've gone through, y'all, I was like, I'm gonna be obedient, but this is going to be so hard. So as you guys seen, I was recording up until literally October, which is when my dad moved in. When October hit, it was like radio silence. And it was really because it was like being faced with the person that has caused you so much turmoil and trauma in your life every single day. To the point where I was not about to be vlogging and on camera and just like everything was great, because I had this like dark cloud over me for a very long time. And I was just angry. I was just mad. I was like, when is this going to end? When is this going to stop? I finally set a boundary, and then this. And God will use the most difficult things in your life to teach you a lesson. And my dad is probably the thing that has been such a sore spot for me, so much trauma behind it, that I know that was nobody but God when I did that. And I'm thankful that I was obedient. I'm thankful that I didn't just go off of how I felt, and I wasn't just like, no, heck no, I don't care what anybody says, no, you're not moving in with me. I did it, and it was the hardest decision I've ever made because I knew it was going to be difficult. And the unfortunate part was, from the jump, my husband and I didn't really set a boundary. We didn't really lay down some ground rules or groundwork. We were just kind of like, you know, you don't have to pay any bills. You don't have to worry about anything. Just get yourself on your feet. Do what you got to do so you can move on to your next level. Eventually that did happen, but I do feel like a majority of the time in the beginning was a lot of lollygagging, if you will, to be honest. It just felt like, once again, I was being taken advantage of in my own home at that. I felt like I wasn't being taken seriously. Like, you're here because you're trying to get to the next level. This isn't about staying here for 4 or 5 years or whatever, and then eventually moving out and doing what you got to do, or staying here permanently. That was not the plan. The plan was to come here to get on your feet and then move on. So 6 months, which was the original plan, turned into 8 months. 8 months turned into a year turned into a year and 2 months. So basically, I was not vlogging because my father moved in with me, and it completely turned me upside down. When he moved in, I just turned 30, and I didn't realize how broken I was because of my dad and all the things that he's put me through financially. And now I was just in a deeper situation with him now living in my house, my first home at that. This is our first home we've ever purchased, ever. And I was like, this is insane. I literally was like, at this point, he's just gonna be here forever. He's just gonna be in the house forever, and I just gotta deal with it. I literally had came to terms with, what if he just never leaves? And a lot of things that I've done or haven't done in my life, I felt like there was this mental, physical wall that was just there because of my father. I didn't do a lot of things that I wanted to do because I felt like it was selfish of me to do these things because I had to make sure my father was good. And that was literally putting a lot of things that I wanted, a lot of things that me and my husband wanted, a lot of things that we wanted as a unit on the back burner because I am making sure my dad is good. And I just thought that that was so unfair for my husband to have to deal with that, because his family is like night and day compared to mine. And I thank God that I met my husband, that I married him, and I was married into his family, because it really shows me the dynamic of family that I always wanted. I'm not gonna say that my family is just in pieces, but I don't have the best relationship with my dad, obviously. I don't really have a relationship with my mom. I don't really talk to my sister. So it's like, that's the complete opposite. His parents have been married for 40 plus years. He has 2 sisters, and he's the only boy. He has nieces and nephews, his aunts and uncles. Everybody is just one, like a unit. My family is just kind of all over the place. And I love my family to death, but we're just not as family oriented as I thought we were. Because growing up, I thought we were, but I guess that's not what it is. So I do thank God every single day for the family that I have accumulated through marriage, and I'm so grateful to be able to see that, because obviously I grew up in a broken home. I grew up with divorced parents, so I actually never really seen it up front, up close and personal. Like that until I met my husband, and I'm just so grateful for my husband, y'all. I love him so freaking much. It's insane. But yeah, that is why I stopped vlogging, y'all. And it has been an interesting journey. My dad has been moved out for about 2 weeks now. It's been like 2 weeks. So it's been interesting. And I have been spending a lot of time with God and in the Word. And one of the things that I didn't realize that I had to do to move forward, because it was like I was literally being mentally tormented with my father, essentially, and all the things that we've been through, and just how hurt I was, and how upset and angry I was at him, and just feeling like this isn't fair and this isn't okay. I was reading Mark yesterday, and I sent it to my husband. I'm going to pull up the text message. So I was literally reading Mark chapter 11, verse 25. And I have just been so engulfed in the Word, and just really reading it and understanding it for myself, and just studying it essentially, because that is the manual for life, okay? I don't know why we just be out here lost and stranded, but we're humans, so it's gonna happen. But I was reading Mark chapter 11, verse 25, and it spoke of forgiveness. I'll put it on the screen. And for the last couple of months, I've literally been talking to my husband about forgiveness. I'm like, I don't forgive him. So why would I tell him that I forgive him? I was stuck in the cycle of forgiveness is how I feel. Forgiveness is how I feel. So I can't tell him that I forgive him if I don't actually forgive him. And I'll give you a little context. Back in December, we kind of got into a little spat, okay? Literally the day before New Year's, right before we were going to church, which is crazy, but we kind of got into it. He started to get a little upset and emotional, and he just said to me, "What about forgiveness?" And when he said that, it like triggered something in my mind, because I never thought about it like that. So I just kept it in the back of my mind. We moved on, we went to church, and we were still, you know, in this little funk with each other, but that's my father, right? At the end of the day, and I'm his daughter. So yeah, we were on our way back to Atlanta. We were driving in the car, and I was just thinking and thinking and thinking. And that's ultimately what happens when you're not in close proximity to God. You're not even thinking about him. You're not even reading the Word. You're not, you know, studying the Word so that you can apply these things in your life. And because I wasn't, I didn't even realize that forgiveness was something that I had to do in order to move forward. So I was stuck in this loop of just being angry all the time and just being frustrated all the time. The way that I responded to my dad when he would say something to me, I was very short with him. I was very snappy with him, because I just responded off of how I felt and all the pain and all the anguish. And just seeing him every day was a constant reminder of that. And I was just mad. And I was like, I cannot get on camera and be one way with y'all and one way in my own house. I can't do it. I can't turn the switch on and off. I just can't do it. So once forgiveness was like planted in my mind, my husband was like, why don't you just tell him you forgive him? And I was like, I can't do that, because I don't. I just don't. So I can't say something that I don't really mean. And I was thinking that it was something that you had to feel. It was something that you had to actually mean when you say it. And it wasn't until literally yesterday, and this was back in December, like I said, it wasn't until yesterday I was reading Mark, and like I said, it was chapter 11, verse 25. And I have been praying about forgiveness for the last month, just praying about it. And me and my husband have been having these conversations about forgiveness, and I'm like, I'm not there yet. And when I read that verse, I don't know what it was. Well, I know exactly what it was and who it was, but I read it differently. I heard it differently. It came to me in a different way. And y'all know how many verses in the Bible are about forgiveness. There's so many of them. And this was the first time I read a verse about forgiveness, and it was just so different than any other verse or any other forgiveness verse that I had read. While I was reading it, all I heard is forgiveness is an action. Forgiveness is an action. I literally heard that. And I was like, I just stopped and I was like, forgiveness is an action. So I pulled out my phone. I literally Googled, is forgiveness an action? And I'll put up on the screen what I sent to my husband and also what popped up. And I was like, are you kidding me? I know maybe some people out there may know this or may be like, girl, duh. But I just could not grasp it. I was so hurt that I just wasn't willing to like do anything outside of my feelings. And when I saw that forgiveness was an action, and it's based off of an action, not how you feel. You have to forgive first and then heal later. You don't heal and then you forgive the person. You have to make the first step, which is to forgive, because God forgave us for all of our sins. So who are we to not forgive the people in our lives who have hurt us? It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm telling you, it's not easy. Y'all know it's not easy, but you have to do it. You have to. You literally have to. So I was like, oh my gosh, here I am thinking I have to wait until I feel a certain way. Wait until I actually forgive you. Wait until I'm past the situation to forgive you. But imagine if we did that and then it's too late. You can't get that time back, you know? So I was like, I have to forgive my father and then I could heal. It was like God was literally just constantly making things happen over and over and over and over again until I got the point. And I finally got it yesterday and I was like, this is crazy. This is what he wanted me to do all this time. My dad was in my house for over a year and I didn't forgive him until yesterday. And he's moved out for the last 2 weeks. So I didn't even do it while he was physically in the household. I waited until he moved out, which I feel like is what God wanted me to do all along. I'm glad I'm here now, but I'm just letting y'all know, if God is telling you to do something, do it the first time, okay? Do it the first time. Don't wait or think that you're doing something that's best for you, or you think that you know and you have all understanding or you got the right answers. Please just listen, because you're gonna continue to go through the same thing over and over again, and you don't even have to. I forgave my father yesterday for everything that we've been through. Every little thing. And now I'm just on a journey to healing. So it has been a long year, y'all, okay? A long year. And I'm so grateful that I'm at this place right now. I am so blessed. First of all, I never take anything that I have, that I've acquired, experiences that I've had, my career, any of that for granted. And I know now that I was put in the position that I'm in so I can bless my father, so I can bless my sister, so I can be a blessing to those that I love. And it was not easy. Now I see things so much differently, and I'm not like pushing y'all to, you know, be Christians or anything like that. But if you do know God and you want to have a relationship with him, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do so. I felt like I was just all in this alone for the last however many years. I was not walking with God. And now that I think about it clearly, obviously, he was with me the entire time. And I'm just thinking like, I'm lonely, I'm to myself, I don't have any friends, I just feel isolated, which is my defense, like I said. But I really feel like God was isolating me for a purpose, and he has been isolating me for the last few months, to be honest. You guys see me post, but it's because I have to. And I hate that, I really do. And I don't want to be one of those influencers who's only posting because they're being paid to. I'm just so thankful for revelation. I'm so thankful for coming to a point where I have a level of understanding that I did not have before. I just pray that I'm able to move on from this. Obviously, I have done the first step and I'm so excited as to where I will be by the end of this year. But right now, I'm just so excited that I made the first step in my healing journey. If you guys have any tips or any things that you've done to get over certain situations, specifically regarding a parent, because I feel like that's something that a lot of us deal with. A lot of us have very, very, very tumultuous, very interesting relationships with our parents. And our parents, God bless their hearts, are the reason for a lot of our pain. And it's so unfortunate. And at this point, because I've forgiven my father, I prayed about it, he was doing what he could do. He was doing with what he was given from his parents. So it's only going to continue to trickle down. But I made the conscious decision and I vowed that I am the end of this. I'm not letting this continue. I will not let this continue. The lack of emotional connection, like just providing for your kids is not enough. And unfortunately, a lot of our parents feel that way. And it's very unfortunate. We are left with the pieces to pick up and rearrange, but we have to do it. We have to do it. And I recommend, if you're gonna do it with God, because he will lead you. He will make your path straight. And at the end of the day, I would not be right here talking to y'all about this. I would still be in the room, in the bed, just sitting around thinking, constantly thinking and not doing anything and not taking action. And I felt like I had to do this video to kind of start from scratch with this channel. Really just give you guys a little bit more into me, because I do feel this emotional disconnect and I don't like that. And I don't want it to be that way. And I want you guys to be able to know me. Like we're sisters, cousins, best friends. I want us to have that connection. So I do want to start to be a little bit more vulnerable with you guys. So y'all, I just ran out of space. So that is my cue to wrap this video up. But I do hope and pray that everyone watching this video was enlightened. I hope you guys are understanding of what was happening for the last year of my life and why it was such a hard time for me, why it was so difficult. And if you have any advice or any similar stories or anything, if you just want to vent, comment down below and let's just have a healthy discussion in the comments. I want to create a community of women that are just growing, and we want to continue to heal and grow as we get older. Of course, we want to build our relationship with God and just becoming the woman of God that we were